Let this to see this starting recording. 3, 2, 1, go here.
Greetings, greetings. How are you doing? This is another episode of Legion of Lilith, and today we have the illustrious, the beautiful Sorsha Renarius. How are you feeling today,
Oh,
Goddess Sorsha?
well, thank you so much for having me, Joseph and Demetrius. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And it's a pleasure to be on here with you guys. Thank you.
It's a pleasure and the honor is all ours. Before we get started, Sorsha, nor myself, nor Demetrius will be held responsible for any information that is misinterpreted. It is up to the viewer to understand what they are consuming. That being said, we're going to get started. Demetrius, how are you feeling today?
So I am essentially good. I have a lot of things to update you on during this interview, but because Sorsha is a guest, I will give her an honor of like sharing her wisdom with us. And for the beginning of this conversation, there is like an aspect of her work she never publicly discussed, but it is actually an aspect of her work through which I get to know her as a prominent member of this community. So her original work and the things she originally became famous for was her experiments with the gin of smokeless fire. And she like had those big altars dedicated to them and Arabic style brass lamps and lot of incense. And she had like carved sigil of those beings in some cloth, and it was like really something which attracted me. And then for a really long time, she was working with Curtis Joseph on a project called The Scales of the Dragon. 72 demons and 72 angels summoned alongside each other as aspects of the same thing. So those are essentially two projects of hers which I recognized her forth as a serious practitioner. And I need to say publicly that she helped me 3.5 years ago. Not, no, it was 4.5 years ago when my grandmother was sick from cancer. You gave me a healing spell for free, and I will never forget that. That was like one of the, nobody in the occult community kind of came close to that. Uh,
Wow.
Well, that's, I mean, thank you for your kind words. I mean, I just think that, part of, building a community with magical people is to just like be there for each other sometimes, like if there's a great need and, things like, family and life and death. I mean, that's serious stuff. So like, if we have the ability to help, I think that it's good to do so if we're able to, you
Wow, I
know.
didn't know. I didn't know that you did that. I commend you and thank you for helping my partner Demetrius here in this time of need. Thank you.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it's an honor. I mean, to be able to help and to just, put things out there and, you know, if I'm in a position to help, then, I'm inclined to do so. And you guys have been out here in the community doing things, I watch, I sit back and I haven't been as active, lately as I've been in the past, but I watch and I see people out here talking about like all kinds of interesting things and really pushing forth good magic. And so I always find that encouraging. So I want to try to also support people, in any way I can, either, publicly or behind the scenes or however it can work. I think that's just part of building a community where people can, go to each other with concerns and have each other's back.
Even though you say you haven't been active, your presence in the community is always felt. So I have to start by, this is a kind of a stock question, but I have to ask it because I'm curious. I'm sure other people are curious. How did you get started in magic? When did it all start for you?
Well, I would say I had an interest in magical, spiritual things ever since I was a kid, like when I was 3, I remember just, picking up on things that maybe other people didn't think to pick up on, or, just the way that my mind worked from a young age was always very inquisitive, very curious, very creative. I think a lot of magical people, when you were a kid, you'd be in the backyard throwing berries and twigs in a bowl of water, living it under the moon. Like we would just kind of make little potions and things in our head that made sense. So I kind of was doing these things, just as a kid expressing like this creative magical side. But when it came to like really like understanding magic, the way that I understand it now, that was definitely after a lot of spiritual journeys into a lot of different types of waters spiritually. I would say, as a young adult, I definitely, like 17, 18, I started really like diving into witchcraft a bit more, a little bit more curiously, a little bit more openly. And then, I think that a lot of people, kind of journey back, if people have like a Judeo-Christian background, you might go back and forth between exploring other things and then going back to church and then exploring other things. And that's, kind of how my journey took it. I had a lot of windy twists and turns, through these different religious systems. And I finally I got so burnt out of church. I said, you know what? I need like magical instruction. I need to connect with, a soul family of people, my spiritual kin. And it, originally led me like the spirits. Like I was playing with the spirit board at the time, and I had never worked with goetic entities. I didn't really even know what that term was. And I had a more Judeo-Christian understanding of angels and demons, and so the first time, a demonic name was spelled out on, a spirit board, it was Vasago. That was the first goetic I worked with, was Vasago.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, what is this Vasago? So I Google it, and then I freaked the fuck out because I'm thinking, oh my God, where demon, Ouija board, scary. I was still a little bit drinking the Judeo Kool-Aid. And but then I started researching Vasago, and some of the attributes historically ascribed to him were, finding lost things or finding a way. And I thought, this is exactly what I need, is to find my path. And and then it's like all of a sudden when I started like kind of tuning into that more and paying attention, I just kind of like jumped into the deep dark end of the black magic pool. I found Bog, I found Quetting, I found, Espen Kane. I found a lot of different people that I, have had a lot of respect for and different connection with over the years. And, I don't know, it just opened up a whole new world for me. These things that I was seeing out here, connecting with other practitioners, then kind of through Bog, on the forum, spending time on the forum, meeting a lot of people, and just started chatting with folks. And then it just went from there, man. Just the sense of wanting to connect with and build a magical community has always been, just something innately that I feel to do.
I wouldn't be surprised if Vasago was one of your guardian demons, because the spirit was there when you were playing around with the witch board. It was just around you anyway. Um, I am a proponent of you have a guardian demon, day and a night demon, that are just they are appointed over your date of birth. They are responsible for your education and guiding you along in the path. So I wouldn't be surprised if Vasago is one of your guardian demons. And you said you wanted to connect with your family. These spirits are our spiritual kin. They're disembodied spirits of either angels or demons or just uh, people that may have incarnated on the earth before. And there's a reason why you are interested in these things and you're gifted in these things, because these are your family. These spirits are your kin. So I
I feel
believe that
that really,
totally.
really strongly. I think that, like from there, then of course I, learned about all the rest of the 72 kind of classically goetic classified spirits, and then, angels, and, just different flavors of spiritual entities that are out there. And it just, I don't know, like there's mile markers we have throughout our life that we can like look back and say, haha, this was the moment. You know, that was a big aha moment for me, was working with Vasago first, and then getting a scope kind of for, you know, the rest of them. And then I just started getting like, I call it downloads of information. You know, when you're working with these spirits, you know, they just can like teach you so much. And so, you know, my dreams, you know, I would have like these intense lucid dreams where I would just get like some intense magical gnosis, and then I could figure out a way to apply that practically in the physical world. And it's just, my life took off from there. And then I connected more, you know, closely with other people, and did some, like, a lot of different types of collaborations with different people in the community. Um, and then, you know, after that, just kind of branching out and starting Abyss Press, you know, after some of my other collaborations, you know, it switched gears. So, um, I just, you know, it's interesting to kind of see the trends in the community. You know, you have different people and groups kind of come and go, but there seems to be kind of a core, you know, group of people out here that you just kind of consistently see. You see them, you feel them, you know, you see their work, you see their books, you hear them doing podcasts, and so I always, you know, love a chance to connect with other people and just, you know, share ideas and talk about magic. It's one thing that I love to do.
So essentially, because we talk about Vasago here, I called the spirit only 3 times, and it was the part of my summon all of the demons of the Goetia path working, because I had essentially a period of my spiritual evolution where I would call all of the spirits of the Goetia on a daily basis in order to attune to them. And what became pretty clear about Vasago as a spirit, he is heavily connected to phenomena of possession. It seems to prefer possession and prophecy over other forms of communication, in my experience. So, what's your kind of view on Vasago and his way of interaction?
You know, that actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think about it as like a possession type of thing, but I noticed, like, when I was first working with Vasago, I would go through these, you know, looking back, recognizing it as more of a possession type of scenario, because I would just be like taken by the grip of this spiritual force that I could sense around me and feel. And then I would just start writing, you know, some of my innermost magical thoughts started coming out of my head onto the paper, you know. And I started, you know, writing and journaling and writing poems and just all kinds of like a creative flow. And it was like, you know, it's like when I write music, you know, it's like a possession. It's like I have to finish it. I physically cannot stop until it is out of my head, like in either a written form or typed out. And I didn't recognize what possession was at the time. I had no like real experience with possession prior to that, that I was conscious of. But, you know, when you mention that, if Vasago, you know, tends to manifest more as possession, that actually explains a lot of that chapter of life. You know, when I was first starting out, it would kind of explain what might have been happening that I wasn't even fully aware of. I find, you know, I find that, you know, when you read like the Keys of Solomon and you look at the traditional descriptions of these spirits, you know, I take that as kind of just like a rough guide. You know, there's so much more than what is written about them. You know, if when you start working with them personally, you know, Vasago, it's a very brief description. You know, okay, you know, beneficial demonic spirit who, you know, can find lost things or treasure. You know, a lot of people will call on him for those things, but I found him to, you know, help with, you know, finding, you know, like your life path, finding a purpose. You know, there's so much more than just like the physical things that he, like, you know, hey, help me find my car keys. I mean, you know, some people might think of just very basic physical things, but I find it was like a key that unlocked so many more doors for me when it came to just these different spirits, that I work with now. And um I find, yes, when with Vasago, then looking back, there is an aspect. It's like he just kind of gets in the driver's seat, and then your consciousness is merged. And one of the rites that I had came up with early on, you know, was like this assimilating demonic essences, where, you know, you like tie in these goetic spiritual DNA with your own DNA. And it's just like you kind of merge with them on a very deep level. And I've done this with, the Goetic, 72 Goetic, 72, angelics as well. And it's like you share these streams of consciousness with them. It's a very deep spiritual merging with all of them. And I find that they come forward at different times in your life when you need them to teach you things. I mean, of course, you can still evoke them and call them like you traditionally would, but there's just a sense of them always being very intimately there, ingrained in your life and in your very being. And I encourage people to experiment with that for themselves with any number of spirits, any type of spirit that they are very drawn to, and see how much more intense the experience can be.
As far as the descriptions, they don't even scratch the surface. They don't really even help at all, the descriptions. If you hear a name of an entity and that sound of the name uh, speaks to you or calls to you, go for it. Don't pay attention too much to the descriptions, because the descriptions are just not that helpful at all. I'm really curious as to astrology, who your guardian night and day demon are. If you aren't adverse to telling me your birthday or typing it, I could tell you the demons that are connected to you as far as
Yeah,
astrology.
I'll give you my real birth date, and time, and there's some people that would hop on and be like, oh my God, Sorsha shouldn't give out that information. But, the way that I see it is that, like, this is my stuff. It can't be used against me in my
Right.
mind, because just my connection with the spirit. So, if you look at Facebook, there is a date that is significant that I put as my birthday, but it was more of like a spiritual birthday. But my actual birthday is February 13th, 1979, and I was born at exactly 5:03 in the morning.
February 13th.
I
So
I need to tell you that you have, don't be offended because this is like not meant to be offensive, but you have really big balls to say this in public.
And
so
that's
you're
okay, and people know my real name, Sorcerer Renarius. That's my pen name. That's kind of like my spiritual magical name. My real name is Darcy Adsit, Adsit. Like, it's not a secret that because when I started doing magic, I didn't have my Sorcerer profile or name. I came out as Darcy Adsit. And so I had all the magic on my private page, and so, I mean, I have some crossover. I mean, I've done magic on my private page as well, because I'm open to my family with what I do. I'm very open. I'm out of the closet there. So, but just because of like the number of people that I talk to, and of course there's a lot of trolls and haters. So yeah, that account I don't do as much magic on, simply because, like, I don't want all of my friends and family harassed that are on that page. So, but as Sorsha, that is a very special name. It's a magical name for me. It's one of my magical names that I'm comfortable putting out here, and I love the name. And it came to me. It took me a while to just step into this side of me, this part of me that was always there, but just you know that is the name. And then the birthday that is attached to Sorcerer, Renarius, would have been kind of like a magical birthday, that was very significant. So that is kind of how I created that profile on Facebook as a Sorsha. But I answer to both, Darcy or Sorsha is fine. And I don't mind people knowing both of my names, because I'm out here and I've been openly magical under both names.
Yeah, that I present my real name on Facebook as well, also, and that's my real birthday. So I really am not scared. Bring it on.
I know.
Bring it the fuck
That's the
on.
thing, is I always say, people who want to curse me, there have been so many that have openly, talked about cursing. And you hear about witch wars and flame wars, and all I have to say about that is bring it, bitches. Because every time that somebody curses me, I get stronger. I feed off of it. The way that my spirits handle it, the way that the spiritual DNA I have woven works, is it creates this lovely spiritual armor, this fortress that, if it doesn't just get, fall at the gate or go back, like the spider to the fly, okay, come in a little further, go ahead
Right.
and I'll let you in just enough to trap you. And then I have you. And then you're mine. You're my bitch. And that's what I see. The trolls and haters, man. I have a lot of pet trolls, and I got a lot of jars, with a lot of names. So I don't worry about people coming at me. I don't worry. I've given people my blood, and I'm still not worried about them, cursing me, because it's, when you understand your own sense as a magician, your own sovereignty, your kingship mentality or queenship mentality, this godhood mentality, then your own stuff really can't be used to harm you if you understand it a certain way. If you're paranoid about it and if you're like worried about it, then that's something that I encourage people to like look at, like address that fear, because once you like fully own it, then you don't have a damn thing to be afraid of.
So based on astrology, your guardian night demon is Decarabia, and your guardian day demon is Gaap or Gap Gaap. So
Interesting.
so can
Well,
you? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I have different ones that that I work with more than others, but it'll be interesting to kind of experiment more with those particular two based on astrology. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would definitely suggest that you reach out and at least acknowledge them. So can you tell us a little bit about your contribution to Edgar Caval's Sabbatica?
Which one?
Uh,
Because there were a couple of
I think
writings.
8. I think it's 8. Sabbatica 8, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I seen online. Or no, that was the clip off Opus. You've been involved in a lot of stuff. I
A
looked
couple,
at.
yeah, a couple with Edgar. Edgar, and by the way, just to throw this out there, Edgar Cavall is an amazing magician. He is so knowledgeable. He's so talented. He's done so much. He has, Serious Limited Esoterica, his own, publishing house, and he's graced the halls of Abyss Press as well. So I'm happy to work with him. And I was honored that he asked me to contribute to his, a couple of his, books. And so, yeah, there was one, Doom Speaking the Bloodline was one. Is that the one that you were curious about,
Any,
or?
any, because you have a lot of stuff. I looked, I was like, man, this woman is busy. Like you were involved in a lot of Edgar stuff and a lot of other stuff as well. But yeah, anything you want to talk about, I'm interested to hear about.
Let's see. Like, I would say like the one that comes to mind is Doom Speaking the Bloodline. I mean, I have the book on my shelf. I could go peek. Um, but so yeah, that one, Doom Speaking the Bloodline, would be, and again, it's kind of like understanding, your blood sovereignty and going from there, using your own heartbeat, your own blood within your body to either, of course you can heal with it, you can curse with it, you could do any manner of things. But this particular work was, like kind of like a cursing type of situation. And so just, really getting in touch with your own vibration, your own, heartbeat, and then, you know, like a heartbeat, speaking, doom and death over a target, over an enemy. Um, being able to, connect very fully with the target as well. And in some instances, like partially possess them with your energy, enter them at, you know, like chakra points if you want to work with like a chakra system, but entering, their energy field however you see fit to do so. And being
So,
able to understand a perspective from their eyes. You're literally like looking out from their eyes. You're literally like, getting an inner knowing of them, a taste of their spirit, and then being able to speak and plant seeds of doom, seeds of, sickness, seeds of doubt, seeds of malice to destroy them from the inside out.
I see where you're going with this. So you're
Yeah.
connecting with yourself first because we're all one. We are all basically, we're all connected. So you're connecting with yourself first, and then you're connecting with them, and then planting the seeds of Bane. I That's fucking genius. I love that. Were you gonna say something, Demetrius?
Essentially, this is pretty similar, so I will share this publicly for the first time. So I'll kind of explain, Sorsha, how I see what you are doing. Because what you are doing with this technology is actually genius. because let me explain why. So I recently performed invocation of Maridic Elder. So essentially you have those genic races, Ifrits, Marids, Ghouls, and Jinn, and Marids are one of the four main races, or four of the main families. And I invoked one of their elders, and the energy was so intense that the nerves in my legs started to shake, and I started to lose feeling in my legs, and I needed a few days to remain and reclaim complete control over my legs. And I was first warned against invoking him, and I obviously disobeyed the warning, so that's the reason why it happened. But essentially later, I was explained why is the case. So certain spirits are so powerful that they shouldn't be invoked because their energy is so strong that when it enters, your body simply burns out. And so what you essentially do to your targets, because it needs to be explained to the audience how it actually works, is human body has a certain amount of energy it can handle from electromagnetic and spiritual level. And what you are doing is you are essentially putting in a really concentrated way to small parts of the body more energy than that small part of the body can handle. And then through that consecrated focus, you fuck up the entire system. And that's how it operates essentially. So you find a small piece of human heart, or small piece of liver, or small piece of I don't know which part of the body. And then you put enormous amount of energy into that small part of the body. And what happens is the body simply starts to become energetically overloaded in that point. And it creates a damage which spreads like a virus through the entire system. And this is the reason why it is said in the Quran that jinn flow through the bodies of the possessed as the burning flames, as the burning fire, because that's what they essentially do. They smash into the body and then they flow through the body and they overwhelm the body in a really small parts of it, but it breaks the entire system. And so how one can defend, for example, from the genic possession? Because obviously, in a lot of instances, the classical exorcism doesn't work because people who are doing those exorcisms doesn't have the proper alignment with forces which are supposed to exorcise those entities. You cannot simply read a page from the book. So recently I had like, I will not describe entire situation, but I was kind of partially possessed by aspect of myself, which was genic in nature. And it kept attacking me in a really violent ways and inducing like manic and panic attacks. And it could be physically observed and I could feel physical flow of energy through my body. And so what was suggested by Paimon specifically out of all of the spirits is the only way to get rid of it is to attune to the energy of it. So to all of those people who are suffering from possession, what people used to do back in the day is they didn't use to exorcise the spirits. It was actually seen as what they call, still in Mongolia today, out of all places, they call it shamanic sickness. Essentially, the spirit tries to integrate into the consciousness of a shaman or sorcerer in order to make him the gateway between the worlds. And so what they do and what Paimon recommended me to do is you merge with that aspect of the self and you merge with that entity and it becomes one with you and it starts becoming your ally. And so that's the only thing black magician, especially black magician, should do. Classical exorcism procedures are completely pointless to us because they don't do what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to merge with those negative forces, not to exorcise them. Because essentially, this is the reason why so many people in this community go insane. Because they don't understand that the aspect of their psyche which is attacking them should be integrated instead of banished. Because if you don't integrate it, what happens is psyche remains fractured and then you attract a bunch of spiritual parasites. and you remove them and they keep coming, and it's an endless war. It never ends. And so you have people doing banishing of parasites every fucking 10 days or something, and it never ends. It's because you are not supposed to banish those things. You are supposed to attune to them, consolidate them, and merge them with yourself. And that's exactly what spirits like Paimon, Iblis, or Kali teach on higher levels, that you are supposed to accumulate negative energy. And just as you said previously, throwing a curse on people like you and me is absolutely pointless, because what you and I do is we simply attune to the energy of the curse and we say thank you. There is no way anybody can harm you with that. Actually, if somebody needs to harm us, he should invoke like some really violent celestial forces, like furious aspect of Michael or furious aspect of Vishnu, or I don't know. Nothing tonic essentially can harm us because we have so much negative energy in our bodies that there is no way anybody can throw it at us and do any significant damage.
Well,
It
and
will
what I
be,
oh,
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, but on that same note, but if you integrate, both sides of that energy coin, if you can also integrate, the angelics as well, they also can't be used against you. Because I work with both. I work mostly with, the demonic, infernal classifications of spirits, but I also work with angelic spirits on occasion as well. And so I find, most of the people that are cursing me are going to be using, demonic things, perhaps some jinn, um, or, a few, kind of like the Loa, voodoo, you know, the people that have publicly been talking about cursing me. And it's just, it's ridiculous when, publicly you have people talking about this and, they're just in an echo chamber, by themselves pretty much. But it still is there kind of in the collective unconsciousness that, okay, there's these things happening. But when you see it for what it is and understand your own power, I see it as a gift. Anything somebody sends at me, even if they don't intend it to be a good thing for me, I just see, I'm very practical. Okay, to me, energy is energy. So like you said, when you attune to that energy, it's like they're these enemies, these people that are hating, the trolls, whatever they're sending at you, whether it's a curse or whether it's just their attention, talking about you, your name is in their mouth. You've become a god to them. You're their obsession. And so they're leaving offerings at your feet because they've acknowledged you as their sovereign by doing so. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. And I'm not saying that, like, okay, we should be foolhardy thinking that, okay, we can never be touched. I mean, maybe we can't. But so far, I'm still standing and I've had a lot of motherfuckers try to curse me and I'm fine. You know. And because it just the way that I see it doesn't it doesn't ruffle my feathers.
Mm.
You know. And energy is energy. Why would I waste perfectly good energy that I can then use, in the spirits, and if you have good energetic hygiene, it will purify it. So even if there was some residual bad juju coming at you, it really is, safe to consume the energy and add it to your own aura or use it, store it to then put out in your own working. So, the more tension, time, and a focus somebody has sending stuff your way, I can just say thank you. Thank you for the kind offering, because it doesn't matter what their intention was. When it hits my doorstep, it's a blessing.
So I have another question, for like practical question for this interview. So because Vasago is essentially the spirit I began this interview, I would like if you can say to the audience some few practical methods on how to reach Vasago, how to call him, which chants to use, and which offerings he likes.
I mean, for me, starting out, I was playing with the spirit board, but beyond that, I will usually evoke him just into my space. I mean, meditating on their name is enough to bring in, some amount of energy. But if you want a more tangible, kind of a more ritualistic type of thing, I'll get a couple of candles, whatever kind of incense. I use a lot of copal because it creates a lot of smoke, but it's kind of a clean smoke, not too raspy on the lungs if you're filling a room with it. I love dragon's blood, copal, black copal, frankincense or myrrh usually. Um, and I'll burn that, and I'll just evoke him. I don't really have like a specific, chant of words to say. It's just the intention of connecting with that spirit. And I'll usually start by vibrating their name, like I'll either say it or sing it. I love to sing, I'm a musician. I love to sing. And I find that sometimes just singing their name, a few times over and over just kind of vibrates into the universe, into the multiverse, into infinity and beyond there, because it creates that vibration. So when you sing it, you say it, I'll just kind of chant their name and then, invite them in, come forth, like, Vasago, 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 and I'll just say their name, you know, invite them through time and space and places in between. Come, come, come. And you just feel that shift. For me, I just can feel usually like a pressure change in the air, sometimes a temperature change. Sometimes it'll get cooler or hotter depending on, the situation. But usually it's just more of a fullness that I feel in the room. Just the air gets dense. Hey, some of it I'm sure is from the incense, it's filling up your space, but then the incense will kind of condense, over my altar or wherever I'm kind of focusing my energy. And then I'll just go from there, and then I'll talk with him, like I'm talking to you guys. I'll present, why I am needing to connect, just, hey, I need some advice, or I need to find the answer to this, or show me the way, or teach me this XYZ, let's work on this. So, I will present, the intent. A lot of times when I'm, for offerings, I love wine, spirits seem to always appreciate like wine. Um, and sometimes I'll offer blood. Um, Not always, but I find it creates a very strong energetic link. So a lot of times I'll take a drop of my own blood and put it in the wine that I offer. And I'll usually take a drink and then leave the rest for the spirit. And that does create a very strong, link. And people talk about, okay, blood and blood sacrifice. I mean, I it's a very personal decision for somebody to use blood, whether theirs or that of an animal. But I see us as, sovereign spiritual beings. So what is more powerful than your own blood?
Mm.
You know, and a little goes a long way. So I'll usually add my own blood to the goblet of wine and then offer that. And that just creates, a very intimate link with yourself and the practitioner. I mean, yourself and the spirit. Um, and that's usually how I will go about an evocation.
For myself, I find that the spirits really appreciate sharing the human experience. So I will call the spirit into myself. And as far as offerings go, if I have some wine or I have a delicious meal, I'll call the spirit into myself and picture the sigil of the spirit in my head while I consume the wine. So they are tasting with my taste buds. They are feeling what I feel. They're disembodied spirits, so they really appreciate the sense organs. They want to take a bubble bath. They want to feel what it's like to have sex. They want to taste the wine. So I really find that it goes a long way with the spirits to share your earthly experience with them. I would even go as so far as to share your vessel. Like with Belial, I share my body with Belial. I offer him the gratification of having a woman. And usually they'll I'll get thanked for that because Belial is a lot more attuned at pleasuring a woman than I'll ever be because he's old. He's really old. And he knows what it's about. He's all about the tongue. So not to get graphic or perverted or anything, but Can you talk a little bit about your fantastic presentation last year at the Black Flame International Left Hand Path Consortium?
The Twilight Crossroads, and then like working in the abyss.
Yes.
Okay, and then yeah, the Twilight Crossroads would also be another contribution to one of Edgar's, compendiums. So, but that's like the Twilight Crossroads is part of kind of this abyss work. It's a smaller chapter of the greater work of this abyss. Echoes from the Void. I find, for me, I feel like I changed fundamentally as a human and as a magician specifically when I really tapped into the abyss. When I discovered like levels of, dimensional levels as well as levels within myself that just I hadn't gone that deep before. I'd gone deep, but this I had, I kind of described like the entire book, Echoes from the Void. It kind of describes this. It was kind of my magical growing up, coming of age story. It was a very intimate look into a lot of things that kind of a chain of events that happened to cause me to really step it up as a magician and rely on, that connection with myself and then tapping into the abyss, into the void to then create radical change in myself and the world around me, not just like a personal gnosis, but collective reality shifting because of this work. And so, in doing so, when I saw the kinds of results that I got, the Reader's Digest version would be, I had a friend that was deathly ill. She was in a coma because the doctors gave her some wrong medication that she was allergic to, and it caused her to go into like cardiac arrest, respiratory arrest, everything shut down. CPR was done, and she was hauled off to the hospital, and she was in a coma. And the doctors did not give her a good prognosis. They said, if she wakes up, she might have the IQ of a turnip, or she may not wake up at all. There was no way to check brain function. And this is somebody that's like a sister to me, somebody very close to me. And at the time I was living out of state. I was in Arizona at the time, and my friend was back in Oregon, and I couldn't just, drive or fly back in time to navigate that. So I said, okay, well, I'll do what I can do magically. And so I, did this ritual. And I was living with another practitioner at the time, another good lady friend. And we, she kind of was like my anchor, in the physical, because I had to go so deeply into the abyss and connect with like the energies of death and life. But there was one point during my journey that I was so disconnected from my body. I was so into this ritual that I stopped breathing very briefly. And I only came to when she was like beating on my chest and like, hello, you got to stay with it here. I was so enmeshed in this journey that it's like I forgot I had a body. So I forgot to breathe. And I went into this abyss space, and I found, the resonance of my friend, because her spirit was her body was kept alive by machines, but her spirit was elsewhere. I could not sense her energy anywhere on the physical plane. So she was already crossing out of this existence. And I found her energy in the abyss, that transitional place. And I created like some spiritual anchors to kind of keep her there, like a womb, a cocoon within the abyss. And I did some spiritual surgery on her. And there were a lot of things that I discovered in the abyss that were just trying to distract and pull my attention away. But I had a singular focus, and I did not entertain failure as even a remote possibility. So it was just learning how to tap into that current of absolute success within yourself magically. And when you can pull from that, you can do, you don't have like the limits that you think you do. And physically it looked like the odds were not in my favor at all, because this person was, on a ventilator, in a coma. The doctors are not thinking she's ever going to wake up. And So I do this ritual, and I did some serious healing work in the abyss. And, as soon as that part of the ritual was done, within 30 minutes, I got a call from a mutual friend back in Oregon, and she took a breath on her own. And so they tried to extubate her, take the tube out, but it wasn't working well. So they re-intubated her, but at least her body was trying to breathe on its own from that point. Okay. And then 3 days later was then like a big eclipse, because this was like in August, and there was a big eclipse. And so I used kind of the energy, flowing through, that eclipse, and then back into the void. And then I did a second ritual. And then within 30 minutes of that ritual finishing, I get a call from the same friend back in Oregon saying that she woke up. And that was like an amazing confirmation. But what tripped me out even more, like that was like such a huge, profound thing for me, getting that kind of like physical confirmation. A few days later, after she was feeling a little bit better, she was able to then call me from her hospital bed saying, look, I don't know what the fuck you did. She's kind of a magical person too, but she said, what the hell was the purple lightning? Because that factored in, because the energy specifically that I saw going to her to kind of give her that push of energy to wake up and to restore things. It manifested as purple lightning in the ritual, in my like the spirit site. She was, I don't know what it was, but I know that you woke me up and the eclipse was happening. What was the purple lightning? Can you explain that? And that was like, it just confirmed everything that I knew magically to be true. And it just made me realize like my own sense of power. So then that experience changed me so much. That's why I wrote that book, was because I want everybody to be able to feel that for themselves and realize like they have limitless potential. Yeah, there are certain laws of physics we might have to be mindful of. Like, don't go jump off the Empire State Building. You might actually go splat without a parachute. It's like there's physical laws of physics we need to be mindful of. But when it comes to going beyond the physical into the spiritual, just having that sense of limitless power and learning how to tap into it and harness it with a laser focus, the things you can do are absolutely outstanding. And that is what I was trying to convey in that lecture for the the Flambeau Noir, that conference, the Left Hand Path conference, was just that limitlessness. And when we talk about the Twilight Crossroads, it kind of goes into that as well, creating like a physical space, going to a physical crossroads and bringing up that energy of the abyss, and then kind of doing work there, like working with that current within yourself, within a crossroads, and then just shifting reality there. So it's both like it can be a physical manifestation of the abyss, but it's really your inner state, like the inner crossroads.
That's a serious aeonic working that you achieved. That's amazing. And what your friend was describing, the Orshiainbo Mashava, the black light, or the hue that's behind you right now, the highest light on the light spectrum that we know of. That's everything that you just described is absolutely miracle worthy. Like you performed a fucking miracle.
It was the Lazarus moment, get up, Lazarus, out of your sick bed. That's exactly what I felt like. I'm like, I am Jesus fucking Christ in this moment. I'm raising the dead. I mean, she wasn't like physically dead, but I mean, it was the parable applies. It's like, this was my Lazarus moment. And I'm thinking, holy shit, what's next? Yeah, I can't wait for the water to wine thing. I mean, that'll be great. I love wine. But I mean, all joking aside, but you can do that. And it's just anybody can do this. That's the thing, is as a magician, you can do it. You can do it. Anybody can do this if you can tap in that deeply. Now, I am glad that I don't have to make that kind of a life or death journey every single day, because that was some grueling, hard work to do. But I'm glad that I did it, because it taught me so much about myself and so much about the abyss and magic in general. And I felt like that was kind of like a level up for me. And, we don't want to get comfortable on the plateau. We want to keep ascending spiritually, in our own power, evolving constantly. And that was a huge shift for me. It changed everything for me, what I thought about magic and what I thought was possible that moment in time. And everybody might have, it might manifest differently for each person. You might not have to, worry about somebody on their deathbed and trying to wake them up. I mean, oh, wait, did we lose him?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. It may not be that intense, but for me, I've always kind of been an intense person. So the spirits know like what will work for you. And for me, that's the kind of situation that was required to like alchemize my will and to harness that level of force that was innately there that I had to like go on this spiritual journey to discover. You know, Everybody can experience that maybe in different ways, but that is our birthright as humans, as magicians, when we tap into that level of those kinds of moments. Those are our birthrights. And so, what are we going to do with it?
Mm. For people that want to get in touch with Sorsha's work, excuse me, guys, I keep getting phone calls, but Sorsha provides a free PDF I believe it's on your website of Echo.
I did. It was at one time. I did offer it as a as a free PDF. I mean, originally I was selling it inexpensively, but then I did offer it for a free PDF, but I did take it down off my site because I submitted the manuscript to Bog and Mr. Timothy Donahue, and Timothy said that he might consider like republishing it through Bog because I had revised it and added some more material and went more in depth into some of the concepts. So I was going to republish it through Bog. However, they have not gotten back to me like since then. I mean, they expressed initial interest, Timothy did, but then it was going to be a while to review. And then like a lot of other things, I think Bog has a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot that they're dealing with. So I think maybe some other projects might be kind of on the wayside until they get a few things kind of ironed out. But I would be delighted to publish it there if they, have an interest, but I don't know for sure where it's going to end up. It might end up back on my website. If they pass it by, then I'll put it back out there. But until then, I'm sure I've seen a few copies, floating around some of the pirate PDF sites. It is out there for those, and I don't care if you download it because I put it out there myself for free. So I wanted to get the information out there more than I wanted to like sell it, because I thought this information can help so many people. And if sharing my journey, I mean, my journey was unique. It was my journey. Your journey might look different. Somebody else's journey, I mean, they're all unique journeys, but the magic is in between the lines. Through telling the story, you kind of can see the thought process behind the concepts. And that's why I had to write the book. That's why I had to write it.
Well,
so it's definitely there.
I highly advise for everyone to support Sorsha. I mean, if you're fucking broke, okay, and you really want the information, seek it out. But toss a coin to your witcher and support Sorsha and all of her artistic endeavors. The work is fantastic and it's fucking worth it. So,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Were you part of Black Magic, Black Dragon Paranormal? And if so, what did you do for that company?
I wasn't really a part of it. I mean, I knew Josh Savage, we were just kind of getting to be acquainted, when, we'd only known each other a couple of months, before he sadly passed. But no, I wasn't like a member of the group. I mean, I liked their sites and, their YouTube page. But we did I think we did like one or two live streams that are out there, probably still on the YouTube page because they
were like, they were touting you as, they're, you were in the company. We'd like to welcome our the member Sorsha Renarius, and I mean, you have a name.
I mean, like for a collaboration, yeah, like for a collaboration. I think that at one point, Josh had asked me to become kind of one of the new managers, but because I had like a lot of other things, I said no. I think that you should give it to let somebody else kind of be the person stepping up for this because it needed like a really singular focus. It needed somebody that could be like devoting a lot more time. And at the time, I had like a number of other things that required my time and attention, but I have a lot of respect for Black Magic. I mean, and for that group. And I feel like, you know, I definitely appreciate the stuff that Josh did. And, man, I still miss the guy. I think about him, every now and then. Um, and, I think it's a great group. I know that they went through a little bit of restructuring, and there was kind of some turmoil when he first died as to who was going to be running the channels. And I think they finally got it sorted out. But it's, that's a great group. And they have a lot of like good information, and they have a lot of archives for a lot of Josh's older, live streams and podcasts. And, definitely people should check that out because there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, rest in chaos, Joshua Savage. I could see why they sought you out. You have a very boss lady, CEO aura about you, like you did, especially if your company was fledgling and you wanted someone to, take the helm and maybe bring some success to that. Can you tell us a bit about your brand of void magic, and how it can be harnessed in witchcraft?
Yeah, for me, I kind of alchemized that experience that I, just was mentioning, you know, like, one of my rituals, that I offer is the claiming of the dark throne. And that kind of like encapsulates the heart of that message. And I've chatted about it kind of, before, just encouraging people to develop their own kingship mentality and going into the void and claiming their birthright there. And when you always have, like, when you anchor part of your energy into the abyss, so I do it as like, I see it as, for me, it's kind of like a place of both creation and destruction. Its ultimate potential is what I see, the abyss being. It's a place of both silence and sound, and sounds have shapes. One of the best ways that I have found to like really dive into the abyss, if anybody ever has a chance to get into a float tank, a sensory isolation chamber, get into a float tank. And some of the newer models, they have like lights and music you can play. Don't do any of that. Have it be pitch black, totally dark, and go in naked. You don't want any clothes on. You don't want to feel your body. You want to just, the water is body temperature. The first time I floated, an average float is usually half hour to an hour. I stayed in almost 2 hours the first time, and you lose all sense of time. You get into these float tanks, it's dark, you can't see, you can't hear, you can't smell, you can't taste anything except for the salt water if you get it in your mouth. But you lose your body. There comes a point where you feel like you're dying, and it's kind of terrifying the first time. And then you realize, okay, I might be not having a body, but I'm still okay. That's like the closest to death that I think you can get to life, to death, while still alive on this side. I mean, other than putting yourself in a risky position where you're like tripping out and doing other crazy things that might actually kill you. But I'm saying, aside from doing some intense hallucinogens, a float tank, will do it for you, because you can, everything just disappears. Your body, everything, the world disappears. Everything disappears. All you are is a point of consciousness in space. There's no time, there's no nothing. And you become pure consciousness when you leave everything behind. And there comes a moment where it might be a little bit of panic and complete disorientation, because there is no up or down or any directional coordinates. But the consciousness is just there. And then it's like you're a shooting star through space. And then it's like you might see like complex 3D geometric light structures. And that's how my first trip was. Wow. And going into that, and then it's like you go through time, and I mean, I felt like I was breathing through my skin, like really like primordial bodily sensations hit me, back when we're crawling out of the primordial soup type of stuff. Like you might see all kinds of like eons and eons of history, like in a second in your mind, and you just understand where things, like what happened and where it's going. That was my first trip, like in a float tank. But most people, I mean, float tanks can be expensive. It might cost you 60 to 80 bucks to go each time. You can build a float tank at home, or you can find a nice quiet closet, paint the walls black, like I did. I'm in an upstairs level, so the weight of a float tank would be like over a ton. So that would, not be great for the floor here. So if I build one, it'll have to be on ground level outside. But until I can build my own float tank, I have a closet devoted to the void that is like, I painted the walls black. Now, those of you who live in an apartment, maybe you can't paint the walls, hang dark fabric, tack it to the ceiling. So just encase yourself in a little black cocoon and try to kind of soundproof it the best you can, and then meditate in there. And that is an intense way to kind of get into the energy of the void. You kind of bring it out, a little chamber of darkness. And, you have that sense of, darkness around you, within you, you go within. And then when you, pay attention to what you experience in the void, you might see things. These are kind of things to meditate on as you're in there. And for me, I saw like a kingdom of thrones, and the thrones were all dark except for the ones that had been claimed by those who understand their birthright. Then they kind of are illuminated with a dark light, you know, and it's just like that sense of spiritual connection, that enlightenment, that Luciferian knowledge of that spiritual light it glows with. And so when I was, perceiving this, it manifested as like a kingdom of thrones. And then you can be on your throne and connect with the abyss. And like if you anchor part of yourself there, then when you're walking along in the physical world, there's always part of you here and part of you there. So it's like an energy that can be drawn up and called upon, to enhance your life, to bring it out into the world. But you're always like conscious of it. You're always conscious of it on some level. It's always there. It's always a part of you that you can bring up. And I find that, okay, for ritual, I know that, Demetrius, you were talking about, we have, okay, like the human body can only hold so much energy in certain parts. But when you tap into the void, those limits go away. I have not found my limit. I've not found the limit to how much energy I can hold and tap into. I've not found it yet. So because when you're tapping into the void, then you're not just using your own energy or taking in your own energy. It's like pure creation and pure destruction. There's no limit to that. So if you can like step beyond that limit, tap into the void, there are no limits there, except for the ones that you mentally place there. And so when you're, tapping into, that's why, okay, practical, magic, bring yourself into the void space. And then a target enemy, you drag them down in chains. And spiritually, you see yourself like a great white shark coming up as a little leviathan under the ocean. You grab them, you dive down with them, you go deep. They won't expect it spiritually. So you go and you drag them into the abyss with you. And then you're queen of your realm, you're king of your world. You're sitting on the throne, they're at chains, at your feet. And then you can, when you're kind of a king holding court, the spirits that are there, they listen to your word as law. So whatever you're speaking over yourself or the world or a target, perhaps, you're a judge, jury, and executioner. You're reading the decree of their offenses. Like when I do that to people, I drag them in there and say, okay, this is why, this is how you fucked up. This is why you're here. This is the litany of offenses. It's the litany of the damned. And you're damning them. It's a litany of offenses. This is what you have done. This is how you fucked up. And this is your consequence. And then you pass sentence. And whether it is like the essence of the void, the spirits, you can call particular spirits to be present as well to hold judgment. And you pass this sentence and then it is carried out. The spirits will carry it out. So you can absolutely directly be taking shots at a person, or you can drag them into this abyss space that you are king of, and it takes care of itself. And then that energy will then manifest back into their life as all kinds of chaos and fuckery happening to them. Things start going wrong in their life. They still might. And what's crazy, the first few times I did this, I noticed that the person I was cursing, they seemed to almost have more success and more good luck. And I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? Well, pride comes before the fall type of attitude. It's like, yeah, let's let them have a little success, and then they have that much more to lose when it comes crashing down. Wow. So people that curse, if you think it's not working, it's only because you're not seeing it right. It might seem that they're actually better off. And that's only because the spirits understand what is necessary for them to hurt most deeply. And if you're trying to curse somebody, usually you want to inflict some pain and destruction on some level. There's like many levels of suffering. For me, I don't take curses lightly. I don't, And especially, okay, if it's against another practitioner, I would rather give somebody the chance to maybe get slapped around a little bit, learn some lessons, and then move on and grow and evolve past that point. You know, I don't use like final death type of curses very lightly. I can count on one hand the number of people that I've gone to where I want to absolutely end them on every level. That's a very short list because I don't do that to many people. Even the enemies that are out there with my name on their lips, I still haven't done a damn thing to them on that level because it works. It's serious. And unless I'm willing to physically let go and put a gun against their head, I'm not going to do it. Because I take it that seriously because I know what I'm capable of based on my own results that I've already gotten with the abyss, with the healing. I absolutely am lethal when it comes to these kinds of curses. I take it that seriously. They're lethal. So unless I'm willing to like stand there, look you in the eye, and put two in your head, I will not curse somebody to that level unless they absolutely deserve it and the world will be a better place without them. Most of the work that I do that is that baneful, it's more like I will drag them down there, pass a sentence, and they will suffer, they will have some consequences, but then they have as long as they change the behavior that was offensive. If they change course, then their punishment doesn't have to last forever.
Mhm. I hope you guys are paying attention to Miss Sorcerer Renarius. You just fucking dropped some heavy
Yeah,
fucking.
yeah. I watched videos, and this was by far the best one. I mean, guys, it's not because of it's my channel, but really you opened up extremely a lot in this. But I need to kind of make a small commentary on what you said regarding the void and the abyss. So essentially, this is not necessarily what I publish a lot, but I'm mostly into left hand path Hinduism right now, and I'm actually in contact with guys who have the original material, so I am working under their instructions. And so, what you are describing is the void. There's actually a term for that. So, in left hand path Hindu Tantra, you have like actual hells. Yes, in Hinduism, there are actual hells, and each one is deeper than the previous one. And so, after you go, you have Shiva and Kali, who are like the rulers of the last underworld space. And then below that you have like infinite sea of negative energy. This is how they describe it. And it's infinitely condensed. And so what you have to do is you have like sit, meditate, focus on it. And what happens then is there is a barrier between your aura and the energy of the universe. And once you meditate on it, it simply flips. I did it maybe a few times for a few seconds while meditating with Kali, and I also had that experience artificially induced on LSD trip. But I need to point out that what you are describing here, because like there are idiots watching this interview and they will try to do this immediately. And what I will say to those people is there is a reason why nobody discusses this, because here is the thing. You need to have meditative and magical experience to navigate yourself before you try this, because if you don't have ability to navigate yourself, there are decent possibilities of soul fracturing, mental breakdowns. You can fuck up your organs, all kinds of stuff. So because all people essentially want this, because this is a form of dark enlightenment, like this is like the first stage of dark enlightenment, what we are describing, left hand path enlightenment. Before anybody tries this, you need to kind of invest years into merging and working with darker entities on multiple different ways compatible with your psyche. And a lot of people, we had pretty recent examples of this, of really young teenagers jumping into this, trying this out, and then going completely batshit crazy because they were successful. Those people were successful, but their psyche wasn't able to handle the experience. And delusion of grandeur appeared as a result, because essentially, what is the delusion of grandeur, which is so prevalent in this community? When somebody is successful in having a spiritual experience of great magnitude, but he isn't able to accumulate the experience. So instead of expansion of consciousness, what happens is the contraction of consciousness and traumatization of consciousness, but ego expands as a result of it. So it's like the opposite of what should happen otherwise. Because when you have those experiences, like what you are describing, so your barrier between you and the world is separated, and you realize your own power, that's true, but you also realize your own smallness in a sense, how we are also one small spark in that infinite sea of energy, which is like swimming and moving back and forth, and how it's all kind of working together, infinite amount of black light spirals. You have black light spirals, it's spinning like a maelstrom, and then they are radiating, as you described, that black purple light, which is like echoing. It's a mix between light and sound. It's not any describable physical light. It's like a darker version of light spiral, which is like going
Mhm.
like a maelstrom, and it's like going in all directions infinitely. And for example, if you look at chakras, all right, the chakras on our body, a lot of people, they see them as wheels, but I deem that description to be incorrect. Those are not wheels, those are spirals, and they are spinning in both directions really, really quickly, and they are radiating certain spiritual energy, which you then tap into when you work with the center. And essentially, what you do when you merge with those things is, it's like, I apologize for analogy, but it's like having unprotected sex with the universe. It's really controversial and dangerous endeavor, because you are in one single moment connecting to enormous amount of spiritual energy in all directions. And if you are not stable, you will in such a trance state immediately manifest the aspects of your psyche which will then leech on you and attack you and try to destroy your mind. And that's why it's so important to essentially have a proper preparation for this. uh yeah.
One thing that I found that can help one prepare for this kind of work is, you mentioned the chakras instead of being like a wheel, like a spiral. Part of the spiral that I perceive is like a toroid, like a toroidal, like a donut. Think of like a donut, an energy donut, okay? And you're like in the middle of it, and it kind of goes up and out or down. It's spinning in all directions, but there is a spiral aspect and a toroidal aspect that I've perceived to this, energetic structure. And when we, can like, see that and understand how energy flows, when we start, working with our own energy first, and then bringing in other spiritual energy, when we tie that in. And it was actually Belial and Azazel that helps me develop the assimilating, demonic essence, work that I've done. You know, it's like a tapestry of energy, like let's just use the 72 goetic spirits as an example. It's like they have these threads of energy that come off of their toroids into our toroid, and it gets caught up in our toroid. So we have our own toroid, our own energy spiral going on. Then you weave in these other threads of energy that are also then incorporated into that. So you have your own energy overlaid with this tapestry of energy that is constantly moving from these spirits into you. So then when your energy is being perceived perhaps by other people, or the way that your energy then incorporates other energy, so when you can kind of control the energy that's coming in from the spirits that you have aligned with and brought it into your energy field, and it creates almost like a new spiritual DNA. Because DNA is a whole other fun topic, to get into. And Belial specifically has had a lot to say about DNA in the last several years. But it, like, we talk about dormant DNA, you know my theory is that working with these spirits can help awaken the dormant DNA to open that to whatever potential that DNA possessed that was previously dormant. This might manifest as physical aspects that are enhanced or spiritual abilities that become more readily available when we tap into this. So it can alter our spiritual and then potentially our physical DNA as well. And with these toroids, these spirals, when I mentioned like a fortress, all of that energy combined, weaving a tapestry into that toroid, into those mini spirals within you, like the chakras, and then forming then the greater one that then extends your aura, closer or outer, depending on how you're working with it. When then energy comes at you, it's helpful. The way that I've described it and the way that the spirits kind of showed it to me is that, okay, when the energy comes in, it can either be absorbed directly by that, it can just bounce off of it and like return to sender type of thing. It can just be nullified, or it's purified by the spirit. It's filtered. They act as a filter, like a spiritual condom, if you will. So when you're out there, making love to the spiritual universe, you're not going to get a spiritual STD if you can understand and be very aware of your own energy. That's one thing that can help you stay more spiritually healthy, in my experience, is understanding that energy flow. And then, because we tend to mind fuck ourselves when, I have people that have come to me for different workings, and they believe that they're cursed. And while sometimes some of them might have been cursed, and I've done work to kind of neutralize that situation and then go after the person targeting them successfully, a lot of times it's in your head. A lot of times people get so wrapped up in, oh, there's these curses, what do I do? They spend so much energy focusing on the person or the curse or the situation that they forget about their entire energy and how effectively our energy can become at neutralizing and integrating incoming energy from whatever the source. But I think if we have like a strong sense of our own identity and our own energy, that can be kind of a spiritual prophylactic, if you will, as well.
Fantastic. So I'd like to take it back to where you were talking about doing baneful work and dragging these people into your realm and reading them list how they fucked up and you're sentencing them. See, you're at a level that's highly advanced. I would tell people you'd have to fucking build up to where Source is. Even myself, I'm writing a book for Belial now, and he kind of gave me what you're describing, but like a training wheels version. So what he presented to me, he deputized me as the accuser on Earth. So
Nice.
I dragged the person into the court of Belial, and I set up the whole ritual like it's a courtroom. Like Belial's sigil is a floor plan inverted of a courtroom. You have the throne of Lucifer, the throne of Belial, you have the accuser, and you have the accused. And if you look at the sigil of Belial, that's the way it's laid out. But I drag them into the court of Belial as their accuser. I place a chair due north. I summon Belial into the chair and tell them how they fucked up, what I'm accusing them of, and Belial passes sentence. I say what they've done to a person or someone else, and I do this for other people as well. They present to me the evidence of what they've done, and I bring it to Belial. I bring it to the court of Belial, and that's sort of how I do. You are you are Belial. You're enthroned in your own thing, and you're passing sentence. But I got a kind of training wheels version of that. I think that's highly advanced work, and I definitely have to get with you. We have to do a part two because we're well over an hour. If you'd come back, I haven't even gotten halfway through the questions I have for you. So if you would agree to come back, we would love to have you for a part two.
Yeah,
I would,
yeah.
I'd be honored to come back. This has been a lot of fun. This has been a
Thank
good
you.
chat. You
Thank
guys are
you.
really like fun to talk with.
Can you tell the people where they can get in contact with you if you are accessible in that way?
Yeah, hit me up. I'm on Facebook, Sorcerer Venaria, send me a message. That's usually the the quickest way to get a response because, you know, I usually have my phone on me and I'll hear the notification. Um, you know, you can email me, sorcerenarius@gmail.com is another way to kind of get a hold of me. But I would suggest Facebook is usually, I check that more than I check my emails. And I seem to get notifications more consistently on Facebook than I do via email. Um, you know, of course, I have like a YouTube channel on YouTube, Sorcerer Renarius. And then, you know, I have Abyss Press, www.abysspress.com. And then I also have www.sorcerenarius.com. And that's where you can kind of like, for those interested in services or just, you know, checking out, you know, what me and my cohorts do. You can check out those websites as well.
Absolutely. Support Sorsha, guys. She's one of the best out there doing it. Highly advanced Sorsha. I bow to your greatness, guys. This is only part one. We will have Sorsha back definitely as soon as she agrees and she has some time to get with us again. Thanks again for being with us, Sorsha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and really, like next time, we and Joseph will prepare also some crazy questions, and I would like really
More.
like you for the next interview for part two to kind of revisit your notes on the Book of Smokeless Fire.
Okay.
Well, that's what I essentially want to focus on my questions regarding part two. And really, you crushed this interview tonight.
Totally.
This was,
Totally.
this
Well,
was one of the best interviews I had so far.
Kill.
And those later interviews seem to like jump in quality. Joseph also interviewed recently a guy who like defeated his chronic illness, which is incurable through demon magic. So we seem to attract like really good people on the show. But yeah, I technically owe you a debt. You did me a favor when nobody wanted to do it. And so whenever you need something, promotion of any work, anything, you can like just message us and I will do everything we can to help you, whatever
We are,
can
like the
help.
demons would say, we are at your service.
Yeah, yeah.
you guys, thank you. So it's been an honor and a pleasure, you know, coming on and chatting with you guys. And I'm looking really forward to our next podcast.
Yeah.
It'll be
Fantastic.
soon.
Thanks again. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this and have a great day. Sources, just stick around for 2 more seconds.
Okay.
Demetrius, you want to cut it?
Yeah.